Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my legally Vaal Temple experiment. This time we did 100. If you guys don't know, Vaal Temples are its own farming strat, and they're one of the most fun things that I like to do every league. Not too much, because it takes a lot of stash space. We're going to talk about that later. But it is incredibly fun and also very rewarding. And that is because of the area contains 10 additional guarded Vaal Vessel, which makes it quite unique. I will first go over what that actually means. What is a Vaal Vessel? What can drop from it? Then I will go over the Atlas passive tree, how you can maximize returns from that. Then we'll go into all the loot, and then at the end, I will show you how much I made. All right, so here you can see it. Vaal Vessel, right? Guarded by a pack of monsters. It's basically a strongbox, right? And the Vaal side area boss as well as the Vaal Vessel have their own drop pool. And just to note, no, you cannot add extra vessels through strongbox scarabs or anything like that. Those do not get converted or anything like that. The only thing you can do is with the guard vessels, you can increase the map effect, and then you can also, so to say, increase the amount of guard vessels you get. 16 is the maximum, at least as far as I know. Now, on how you can obtain Vaal Temple, it used to be that a lot of league mechanics kind of just like spew them out, right? That doesn't really happen anymore. It cannot drop outside of corruption, Vaal side areas, or divination cards. So if you corrupt the map, you have a small chance in Vaal side areas you can drop it, and there is I think only one divination card for it, maybe two. There was also Beastcraft that was also removed. What does that result in? It's overall harder to get. For example, last time I bought these for 10 chaos in bulk, and this time I had to buy them for 25 chaos in bulk. But as always with the economy, that comes back in other ways. For example, the items that drop, some of them are more expensive than they were last league. But to discuss that, we have to look at what dropped from Vaal Vessels. So first up, double corrupted uniques. And there is a lot. And that is a upside and a downside because you'll need a lot of stash space. And you can say, okay, some of these are absolute trash, right? Why did you even put them in there? The reason is time. If you have to hover over all of them, then it's just going to take way too long. And the second reason, even more importantly, is I play a lot of builds. And I have sold stuff in here that I would have never thought sold for like a Divine or 150C or even 100 Chaos, right? When you price down the tabs. It's actually quite ridiculous. Certain items are very unique, right? With your double corruption. And if somebody needs exactly that at exactly the time, and you have it up for like 150C, one Divine, they will probably buy it. Now, the next thing that makes me about as much money as these double corruptions every league is actually jewels. So if you don't know, corrupting blood jewels can be corrupted blood. Yeah. So these can get quite ridiculous, right? In this case, I, for example, sold, I think I still have one of these left. You have the mirrored version left. The normal one of this one sold for 5 divines, and I don't see why the mirrored one wouldn't sell, right? So basically, if you get corrupted blood, some life, on the other jewels, it's like crit multi, right? Stuff like that. It can sell upwards of 10 divines. I didn't hit anything crazy. This was the best one I hit, and I hit a mirrored version of it as well. I sold another 2 or 3 of them that had like a lot of flat damage. One was like a ghastly eye jewel. I'm not too good with minions, so I don't know why that technically sold. But a lot of time, that is the point. I don't understand why some of these items sell, right? But if you don't ever put them up and you just look at them in the map and you leave them on the ground, that can be a issue, right? So that is the second big money maker. The third one is maps and corrupted maps. Boy, oh boy. Do you get a lot of maps in this? It is quite ridiculous. If you look at this number, I started with like 100 of these. I don't know, man. It is quite ridiculous. Some of them will be, quite a bit of them will be corrupted. So you usually want to pick certain layouts that people also run corrupted. So none of the juicer layouts or anything like that, for example, Dunes or whatever, or Crimson Temple. You want stuff that people use for boss rushing, where they don't care that much. For example, Coves, City, Square, or Mesa are the ones that I picked. Then the vessel also drops corrupted essences. So in total, I think we dropped like 40 something. It's like 1 every 2.5 maps-ish. So it's not huge, but it's still a nice return, right? Like if we say every 2.5 maps, you get like 20C. That's still like an extra 8C on top of every map or so, right? Or 7. So then we also have the price of protection card, which isn't that big of a deal, especially this league. But it has to be noted, this is something that should be on your filter, and that might actually not be on your filter if you're doing this strat, and that is you get a Elder Guardian occupied map. And as far as I understand, this doesn't drop from the vessel itself, but from the mini boss that spawns from them. But yeah, that's what I think at least. So yeah, that's where you get a lot of Elder maps as well. Didn't add up to all that much, but it's still in there. Now, another thing that's obviously big is we're going to be going Wandering Path, so we're also going to include Harvest. Harvest made us round about 12 divines in the 100 maps that I made, which is going to be a pretty big chunk, right? So doing Harvest is kind of free because a lot of the points that we would have taken anyways, and this is the perfect segue into the Atlas passive tree. First of all, I want to quickly talk about Harvest because there's a lot of chaotic stuff going on here that I will have to explain. I will have to explain Twist of Fate into Growing Hordes, for example. But Harvest is kind of like a steady moneymaker, right? Where all this RNG comes in with like double corruptions of jewels, of normal items. This is steady income. This will always get you good money. We're using Wandering Path simply because of the Vaal vessels. There is a non-Wandering Path version out there. I personally have found more success with this one. Doesn't mean that the other one is not valid, right? So Wandering Path makes it so these nodes here get doubled. Normally, you can only get to 13 Vaal vessels because you only get, what's that? 2, 15, 30%, right? So you go from 10 vessels to 13. But with this, you go from 10 vessels to 16. Once again, this implicit is a map effect and it gets scaled by map effect. And basically from using Wandering Path, that's why we use Harvest, right? It's really, really good. In this case, I actually blocked blue plants. These two are worth a little bit more. You can also do more. You can, for example, put the invitation drops, which we got like 2 divines of invitations or something like that. But you can also put them here and block red or something. Right now, I think yellow is the biggest, but that depends on whenever you're watching, right? And then we just fill out all the duplication chance, all the map duplication chance. This is another big money maker, maps, right? That is definitely a big moneymaker. Now let's talk about Twist of Fate and how this actually works. So the reason we want Twist of Fate and why it's so good is because it changes the layout of Vaal Temple. Vaal Temple layout is horrible, right? Almost any layout, I would say 95% of layouts are better than that. And what Twist of Fate does is when you put in a corrupted map, which all Vaal Temples are corrupted, it will get reshuffled. All the mods get reshuffled, but also the tile set gets reshuffled. So for example, you could get like a strand, but you could also get a museum. But on average, it's still way better than a Vaal Temple, right? But what else gets reshuffled? Atlas missions, map crafting options, which is whatever. Scarabs get reshuffled. So that means that if you wanna like force anything, you can't really. But what you can do is instead of reshuffling them, you can put in Growing Hordes. Now, what happens with Growing Hordes is the scarabs get consumed before this can randomize the scarabs, right? Which then means that you don't have really that downside, right? You can either use no scarabs or you can use Growing Hordes. I would personally say use Growing Hordes because we're also using Harvest. And overall, it's just really nice for map sustain. I shouldn't say map sustain. You're not sustaining anything. You're buying Vaal Temples, right? You can't sustain them. But I'm saying you get a lot more maps, which you can then sell or later do farming strats. Now, this keystone is very intricate and it's very strong. But if you use it correctly, there you go. That is what you do. The one huge downside here is the randomized mods. And there might be some mods that you can't run, which is a big deal. But the one that you can negate is Reflect, right? With this compass right here, I bought one of these costs 3C per, right? Maybe goes up to 4 or 5, but these are super common. There's hundreds and thousands out there, right? In bulk. So this one will basically prevent that you get reflected on, right? And this is really important unless you're a chaos build, in which case it doesn't really matter. So as you can see right here, I have it on there. So just to show you how this works, right? So I haven't prepped anything. You would usually obviously buy these in bulk, right? And just put 40 of them in, but I'm just gonna do this real quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Put a Vaal Temple in. Now we're using Eater of Worlds, which it's kind of nice for the harvest, right? Get some extra quant on the harvest. Would be my preferred thing. You can also get divines. I didn't get any, but just saying, you can definitely also go red if you want to be a little bit more consistent. Personally, I think it's better for the harvest. If you look here, I'm putting in a Vaal Temple. Boom. And what do we get? We get a Mesa. Okay, that's a pretty good roll. Let's put some sound in so it isn't too annoying. I'm not going to do the whole map. I'm just going to show you how these Vaal vessels look like. So when it comes to strongboxes are pretty rippy, right? They can detonate corpses, which on this build is not that bad because I'm exploding a lot of them. But there is also Ice Nova and stuff like that. So if you have a squishy build, that is a big problem. So I would get into a build where you don't really have to think about those kind of things, right? All right, first double corruption, absolute trash, right? So in this case, we're just going to head to the boss, right? Kill real quickly. Go out. And now here's the thing, right? You want to search for all of the Vaal vessels. They are worth searching for, right? It's actually good. They are definitely worth searching for, right? And what just happened here is I got the reactivation, right? So on the Atlas passive tree, you will take these points right here, which give you chance for strong boxes to be openable again. And that's what happened right here. So I got the first one, and now let's get the second one. All right, and we got another hit. Okay, that's pretty lucky. This usually doesn't happen, or very, very rarely. So just so you know. So we got some corrupted maps. We got this. We got a Doresos, which might sell. This one definitely doesn't sell. When it comes to what to pick up, right, I would definitely say that single corruption is something that you don't necessarily have to pick up unless you know that it's worth something. Double corruption, I would be a little bit more, like, hesitant to leave something on the ground, because at some point it might just sell, right? So in this case, we're going to do Rusted Expedition is actually pretty good. Let's pick that up. And yeah, you're basically just searching for everything. And this is where you can already see some of the downsides of this strat as well. It is very lucrative, but sometimes you hit maps like Museum and you can't really, you kind of have to backtrack. Because very often what happens is if you don't, you'll just miss Vaal vessels, and that is just money, right? So it's actually worth to backtrack for whatever that means, right? And that could be quite annoying for some people. But overall, I found the loot variety just to be really, really fun. So we got one here, got one here. I think we're done. Yeah. So I'm not going to do the whole map, but you kind of get the gist. But to get this further in, let's look at the loot. So I didn't hit anything crazy, right? The biggest thing I hit, which last time I checked was like, I think 8 divines or something. I think 9 divines is what I priced it at. Is a +2 Dorianis with actually a pretty good roll. So if I don't look at the roll, it's like 15 divines. I don't know if that actually sells for that. I priced it at like 9. But that is the biggest thing I dropped, right? Which isn't a crazy, crazy drop. I've done this a few times. And this is like, if you do 100 of those, you can expect 1 or more in this kind of size, right? So for example, Reign of Splinters with this roll is like 6 divines. The Dorianis, I got a Storm Shout, which is pretty lucky. Shouldn't usually happen. The biggest drop I ever got from Vaal Temple is actually a +1/+2 Covenant, which sold for like 150 divines or something. But that is something that you can't really expect. That is obviously very, very rare. We got a Tainted Pack with additional Curse. Only a single corruption, but on the right item, that can definitely make a difference. And you also get some fractures. These are just randomly. In this case, I got a Damage over Time Scepter. Now, some other things you get is 21 gems, which I kind of forgot to talk about because they're a very minor part of your money. However, Grace 2120, I think, is still 150 chaos or something. So in total, these were still pretty good. A lot of Forbidden Tomes because we have a lot of quantity from our Atlas passive tree. A little bit of random stuff. We already talked about the double corruptions. I guess one double corruption I forgot to add is actually this Bright Beak here, which I got whispered for like 3 or 4 times immediately when I put it in the 1D tab. Probably for all the trauma users, right? I'm not exactly sure how crazy this is, but I mean, it has a perfect attack speed corruption, and it has Fortify, so it might actually sell for that. Otherwise, I'll price it down. As for jewels, like I said, a few ones of the flat damage ones sold. I think one of them had Corrupted Blood and one of them had Mana Reservation. The original version of this sold, right? And the rest we're going to see over time. Obviously, a ton of Harvest juice, but let's get quickly into where I actually made that money from, and I put everything down right here. So after one day, 14 div worth of jewels have sold, mostly Corrupted Blood and Mana Reservation Efficiency. I think one of them sold because it had Mana Reservation Efficiency in the implicit and normal, right? Price of Protection is the Divination card that gives you Elder Guardians. Corrupted Essences. Gems are kind of meh, but I still had to add them. Oh, another thing I missed was actually fusings. You get a ton of 6-links from the Vaal vessels because everything gets corrupted, right? So that is also in there. Not crazy, but it is there. Fortune cards, I did actually get quite a few of them. Now, where are they? Oh, yeah, right here. So Fortune is a new card, right? And a lot of the layouts, we get a random layout. Some of them are sunny, and in those, the Fortunate can drop. Then we have Sanctums, which are worth a little bit. Harvest, which is a pretty big hitter right here. Eldritch Currency in total. This is obviously from the altars right here. So we're talking this and this. Then we have random drops. So this is all the blueprints, currency, fragments. I put that together. I kind of estimated that. It could be more, could be less, but around about 6 divines. I also dropped 2 raw divines, which is also in here. Some exalted, some annuls, whatever, right? Then we have influence, unique maps, invitations, right? So we did drop stuff like, I don't know, Coward's Trial, 2 of them. We did drop some invitations. Obviously, I also put the Screaming Invitations in there. So in total, that comes out to 90.5 divines. Now, what did we pay in total? I just put 1 C per map for a Sextant because, I mean, it's actually a little bit less, but just maybe price inflation or whatever. 25 C is what I paid in bulk per map. Obviously, if you're going to pay more, because these usually go up over time, put in 40 or whatever and do your own math here. Then in terms of scarabs, 4 scarabs cost around about 3.5 C, right? So that comes out to 29.5 chaos per map, which for 100 maps comes out to 12.8 divines investment. That means that over 10 hours, we made 9.05 divines per hour. However, and this is important, there's 2 caveats to this. One is positive, one is negative. There is no selling time included. And I didn't sell them yet, right? As you can see, because I wanted to show you the loot. But it's going to take some time, right? This is not one of those strats where, like Sanctum, for example, where you just get raw divines or anything. So the selling time is going to be significant. And if it plays into that, it will probably put the div per hour down to like 7.5-ish or whatever. However, on the flip side, I have all these items lying around, right? That will sell over time once I price down the tabs or when somebody comes online who needs it. So there's also no future sales included. I literally just did this strat and I didn't have much time to think about this. So what can we conclude from that? That this strat is really good if you are still planning to play. So if you're somebody who just wants to make quick money, you're out in like a week, then maybe not the best thing. But if you're somebody who's still planning to be online for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I mean, this could be something, right? You're going to get basically money over time from this back. That's what this basically revolves around. So in conclusion, this strat for me personally is really fun. It's like gambling, basically. It's like you not just stay in your hideout and like try to duplicate your div card or whatever. You're gambling while killing monsters, which I like killing monsters. And if I can kill monsters while clicking on 16 different like gamble buttons inside a map, and it could have a 150 divine item, but most of the time it doesn't. But it could, right? Sometimes it has a 5 divine item, sometimes a 1 divine item. There's weird items, right, that I see here that I've never thought about. There's like items here where I think I could maybe make a build around this, right? Which is really wacky, but I guess that's maybe a little bit on the side. It has good returns over time. If you have time to actually like do this and then you know you're still going to be online for a few weeks, the divines are going to come in over that time. All you really have to do is price these tabs down over time, right? There is a few downsides though, and they are very glaring, right? You need quad tabs. So all of this stuff that I just said needs you to have all of these quad tabs. That's a lot of space that could be dedicated to something else. A lot of other strats, or most other strats, right? Once you're done selling everything, your tabs are clean. Here, I mean, over time, maybe some stuff sells. Maybe you can put it into like 2 quad tabs. But this is just what I got from like 100 maps. So that is 10 hours of gameplay. That's like a day, right? Or 2 days, right? It's like, after that, what are you going to do? So it's not something that you can just like farm for a week straight. You're going to need way too many tabs. Also, it needs a really good build. Honestly, Wandering Path just makes your map extremely hard already, and everybody who farms this knows this, because, for example, less recovery goes from 60% to 96%, so if you can't handle that randomly, you're gonna have trouble, right? But Twist of Fate makes it even worse. Whereas with Wandering Path, you can re-roll your maps to, for example, you say you can't run less recovery, well, with this you will kind of have to, or you have to find a way around it whenever you roll it, because the mods get reshuffled. You can't just re-roll it, right? Like whatever's on your Vaal Temple doesn't matter. It will be reshuffled. So that is a huge downside, and you have to have a really good build to counteract those situations. For example, I have a ton of damage, and if I get stuff like less CDR and like enemies suppress spell damage and more damage, my build still has like 40 mil damage. So if I drop down to 3 mil, it will still feel okay. But if you start at like 10 mil, you can see the problem. And the biggest thing by far is there is a lot of junky layouts. For every lucky Mesa or Strand, sometimes you get Museum, right? Overall, I would say you get a lot of like average maps as well, which I don't really mind, but I mean, still, right? This is a problem and it's definitely a downside. Yeah, that's basically all I got. Hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned a thing or two. Maybe you want to try it yourself. You don't have to do 100, just do a few and just have some fun, right? And yeah, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.